Hello and welcome to our presentation on teaching mathematics for social justice, or TMSJ for short. My name is Lauren Spape, and I am a recent graduate of the University of Akron with a master's degree in curriculum and instruction. And my master's project was about teaching mathematics for social justice as well. I'm currently a long-term substitute at BHS, and that is a little bit about myself. Dr. Pachnowski?
Yeah, then BHS is Barberton High School, right?
Yes, yes.
So, I'm Lynne Pachnowski. I'm professor of mathematics education at the University of Akron. Been there for 28 years. Other activities and Ohio Council Teachers of Mathematics. I'm currently the East District Director, which is what just made me drop an email to Tom Nunziata just to ask him what was going on, and he was telling us about this conference. And Lauren has done an amazing project to share. So I'm also on the editorial board for the Ohio Journal of School Mathematics to talk about advocacy, and actually social justice is just part of that advocacy work. So our objectives for the session today is, first of all, we want for all of you as teachers to value the benefits of incorporating some social justice topics within the classroom. I know everyone's busy and has many objectives to meet. And so what's amazing is there are some resources that are coming up that we'd like for you to be able to see and think about, wow, if I'd be able to take the time to do this, would have some value to it. Lauren's going to reflect on her experience, having some opportunity to teach a lesson regarding social justice. So you'll be able to reflect on her experience and think about similarities, maybe some modifications that you'd make. And lastly, there's a few, not a lot, but some resources, recommendations that we have to share to help you incorporate social justice topics effectively in math lessons.
So, what exactly is social justice and why is it important? So, social justice is considering the contributions and rights of each and every person in society, and it has four core components of access, participation, empowerment, and human rights. So, access, we want to ensure access to and a fair distribution of both human and material resources in our society. Participation, we want to make sure we are creating equitable opportunities for people to fully participate in decisions that affect both their lives as well as the societies. Empowerment is about supporting people's sense of agency and taking advantage towards opportunities, as well as eliminating any oppression that may be there. And lastly, human rights acknowledges the rights of each and every human being, regardless of race, sex, gender, or any other status. And we see a lot of this in Paulo Freire's work, which teaching mathematics for social justice is hugely based on. It is very based on his educational philosophies, which we will talk about in a few slides here.
Yeah, Paulo Freire and Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and that whole idea of social reconstructionism.
Great book. All right. So this is actually a screenshot directly from the book, and it's almost like those little Russian dolls that stack into each other. So teaching mathematics for social justice is based upon standards-based mathematic instruction, and then it follows a flow from there. So standard-based math instruction, also abbreviated SBMI, helps really ground the instruction with meaningful engagement. That's what really starts this mathematics lesson, this social justice lesson per se.
Yeah.
Then we have, oh, go ahead.
Oh, what as I was reading through in the book that Lauren's talking about, we'll show you in a minute, but when the complex instruction, as I'm reading that to me is very much related to low floor, high ceiling concepts as well, that these are problems that there's opportunities for all students to be able to engage in.
Absolutely. So there's complex instruction, CRP, so culturally relevant pedagogy. That, as well as critical math education, kind of go hand in hand in building critical consciousness within students. And then, of course, we do have teaching mathematics for social justice. So, content, context, when, and how, those all are super important. Content is, well, in this case, math. However, social justice lessons can be taught throughout any grade level and any subject. Context is accessing students' culture, gaps in knowledge, awareness. Really, these are the purpose. What's the purpose of the lesson? What's the audience? Who is involved, as well as the timing of the lesson, which connects to when. Okay, we wanted to make sure that this lesson does fit within our standards and it's flowing logically. And lastly, we have how, which is considering strategies, reactions, student pre assessments, really figuring out the nitty gritty portions of this mathematics lesson. All right. So, one thing that is mentioned in the book, and I'm really glad that they mentioned it because as a second year teacher, this is something that I have had to had to deal with a little bit so far, but especially with social justice lessons, we want to make sure we're anticipating pushback. And there's a couple of things that the book recommends to address that. So, first and foremost, you want to seek to understand others' perspectives, as well as avoiding responding from an emotional stance, even if you're emotionally invested in what you're teaching, really just answering non biasedly. Avoid sending lengthy responses via email. But if you do, go ahead and share your rationale for why you are teaching what you are teaching, why it's important, how it fits within the math lesson, and pick your battles carefully. You definitely don't want to spend time arguing with someone or defending your own standpoint if it's not going to go anywhere. All right, so let's dive a little bit into my experience with my lesson. So way before the lesson even began, all the way back in, I want to say September, I started doing research. And it did start off with this book. It's pictured here. It's called High School Mathematics Lessons to Explore, Understand, and Respond to Social Justice. And it is by NCTM.
Let me present it a bit here so it's a little bit larger.
Yes.
It is, it's published by National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, but particularly Robert Barry was one of the prior presidents of NCTM and four others. So there's a lot of amazing stuff in the first few chapters. And then there's 4 chapters of lessons that follow based on the 4 content areas of numbers and quantity, geometry, statistics and probability, and algebra.
On top of that book, which was the foundation actually for my lesson, which we'll talk about in a few slides, is all the scholarly articles that I chose to read. And what I kept seeing over and over again is the idea of reconceptualizing math, critical consciousness, as well as problem posing pedagogy. All right. So, still before the lesson, I had to start um, really developing what the lesson is going to be. So, back in February, I started collecting data remotely. I had students do a pre assessment as well as fill out a little bit of background information about them, since I do have 1 or 2 students in the class that I gave lesson to that I've never seen because they don't turn the camera on. As well as the Harvard implicit bias test, which is very interesting. It tells you if you have any implicit bias that you may have not even known about. So this lesson took place in March. Again, it was a remote setting. So we did this over Google Meets with my 9th and 10th grade honors geometry class, which was about 25 students. So this is how my lesson was lined up. I started with a Padlet to engage students and really use that as a hook, and follow that up with a video regarding the Paralympics where they had to do a reflection on it. Then we set a few classroom guidelines. We started a worksheet that related the math content to the social justice content, and then ended our first day with a poll everywhere asking students a few questions, getting their feedback, as well as getting them engaged and ready for it the following day, where we finished up by starting off with a few videos about more Paralympics topics. Then we moved on to a worksheet about similar track sizes in ski tracks. And finally closed with another Padlet, almost made like a sandwich, started with the Padlet, ended with the Padlet, all regarding our social justice topic.
Okay. So yeah, so this is a sample of your Padlet though. So for your worksheet, was that something you created or something that was already from the book?
Oh, good question. It is from the book. A lot of stuff that I used is from the book since it was my first ever teaching mathematics for social justice lesson. So it was a great beginner tool. And like you said, they do have a lot of topics. It's not just geometry, but they also have algebra, statistics, and probability. Um, so great start. Highly recommend it for maybe your first lesson, or at least read it to see what a lesson outline kind of follows.
And the videos that you showed also, those were included?
Yep.
Cool. Cool.
All right. So yeah, this is the first Padlet that I had them do, and it said create a short list of athletes you know, then answer the following questions, which is kind of hard to tell, but it pretty much says what role do athletes hold in society, as well as what do we as society value in athletes. And I got a lot of answers of Serena Williams, LeBron James, and a lot of great feedback about the value that they hold. A lot about motivation, being good motivators. They are brand ambassadors, as you can see in the bottom right hand picture. It is LeBron James holding a strawberry, sorry, a Sprite cranberry. Um, so definitely got them interested. They probably started thinking to themselves, hey, why am I learning about athletes in math class?
So then you showed the video.
I did show the video, which I have to be honest, before I started researching this lesson, I have never seen volleyball be played this way. So this is sitting volleyball, and the athletes just play volleyball like you would normally think they would, but they're sitting down, and it must take so much talent and skill. And that's actually a lot of the reflection responses that I got. So I asked 3 questions. I asked what aspects of the clip surprised you, in what ways was the game of volleyball made more accessible to the Paralympic players, and what factors were considered when making changes to the game or court. My students were just as surprised as I am, and it was definitely a great way to really start the lesson.
Cool.
All right, so before we dove too deep into our topic of the Paralympics, we wanted to make sure that we set a few clear guidelines to make sure that we are, thank you, to make sure that we are including everyone and making sure that we are talking about everyone respectfully. My favorite one that I actually had to remind people a few times of is the people first language. For example, you would say a person who, a person with, a person who has a disability, for example.
So were these ones that were suggested in the book, or ones that you came up with or found in the literature?
These were suggested in the book. I did change the wording of a few from the book just to make it a little bit more understandable for my 9th to 10th grade audience.
Makes sense. And so the idea, oh boy. Okay, the idea is to just have some ground rules as far as creating a classroom environment that's everyone feels safe in with those guidelines.
Right. So once we've established that, we moved on to our first math-ish task. And I say math-ish because this task was a worksheet that I gave to students where it had 2 sets of similar courts. And students had to explain which ones were more similar, what they mean by the word similar. And I accepted answers that had what we think of the word similar. Oh, they have something in common, to the mathematic meaning of similar, which, talks about proportions and scale factor. Since I didn't specify within this task which one I was expecting, I got a variety of answers, and that was great. However, I did push students, once we were reviewing the answers, more towards the mathematical meanings, since that was the direction that we were going in. And this is also from the book. All right, that took up a lot of time for students to do in their groups. So we ended day 1 with the poll everywhere. That was just 4 questions. Those questions were what factors were considered when making changes to the game or to the court to make one similar and one not. In what ways do changes make the game accessible for all? When sporting events are designed, who exactly are they designed for? And how would you define what it means to play a sport? I found that last question the most interesting, just because a lot of students didn't know the dictionary definition of what a sport is. But for the most part, they did say it was someone who exerts energy, who maybe has developed some kind of skill over time or is trying to develop a skill. And these questions were also from the book. All right. We started day 2 strong with 3 videos, just short clips, more Paralympic videos of basketball, soccer, and swimming. A lot of students said the swimming one was their favorite. Then we sent the majority of class on the second worksheet, which involved ski tracks. So for prompt 1, students had to draw a similar ski track that was twice the length of the existing ski track, but keep the start and finish line at the origin or at the center of the graph. This was pretty easy for students. They didn't really struggle until our second prompt, where they had to do another dilation, another similar proportional relationship, but they had to do a dilation from something that wasn't the origin. They had to do it from a different point. And I made sure to give feedback for those groups of students that did struggle a little bit with that. And then finally, after that feedback was given, I did do another Padlet as a closer. And we watched a brief video about accommodations versus accessibility. I watched this video when I was in my undergraduate studies because I know I was a little bit confused on the differences too. But I had them watch the video and then find examples that maybe even are on their computer of accommodations versus accessibility. And you can see some of their examples there. But that was a great way to close off our lesson to really end what it means to be an athlete. They really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's great. In fact, that's something that I don't know that we have many high schoolers that are able to identify the differences between those two things. So that's a learning outcome that's great in itself.
Of course. All right. So I chose 6 students to get feedback from, and I had them fill out a Google form. And these are just some of the pie charts that I found really interesting. So, for example, this one says, did you think there was a balance between the social justice issue and the math concept? 4 of my students said that there was a balance, and 2 of them said there was too much math, which really surprised me because I'm the person that can never have too much math. But yeah, it was overall fairly balanced.
Yeah. And considering there's 6, so you had 4 who thought it was just right and 2 who, so that's not bad for ninth grader.
Right. We also talked about, did this lesson help you learn how to be more inclusive? And everyone said yes, and that is awesome. That is definitely something we are looking for in an outcome of social justice lessons. Following up with that same idea is, would they be interested in learning social justice lessons in other classes, such as science or English? Everyone said yes, which is great because not only can you do single subject based social justice lessons, but you can also do it across the grade level. So maybe an Algebra 1 teacher wants to do it with an English composition teacher who wants to do it with a biology teacher. Great opportunities. And these are just some of the social justice topics that my students found the most interesting. So I told them to choose as many as they would like to. They didn't have to choose any, but everyone did choose at least one, which is great. And my highest ones were racial injustice, climate change, and LGBTQ plus oppression. And of course, there's more than just these social justice topics. However, these are the ones that I know are more likely to be interesting to students.
Yeah, and based on this group of 6. So interesting.
So let's talk about some of the outcomes that came out of this. So I did do that student generated feedback where I figured out there was a pretty good balance between mathematics and social justice. Students also reported having a better understanding of individuals with disabilities, as well as what it means to be similar figures, dilations, transformations overall. Next, we have the math and real world connections, which I feel like we don't get enough of. This goes hand in hand with the idea of reconceptualizing math. So overall, students have a more positive attitude towards math, realizing that math is all around us. Doesn't matter if you go into a career field that specifically has the word math in it or engineer in it, but it is all around us every day. Next, we have increased content knowledge. So they explore those similar figures, transformations, like I said, specifically dilations, and they did do better on the post assessment than they did the pre assessment, which is great.
That was good.
Next up, we have increased social justice interest. So students had an increased curiosity towards the Paralympics. Many students still had questions such as how many Paralympic sports are there? Because I only showed them four, but there are definitely more than four. Outcome five is that teachers and students pre-explore their own bias. Um, you could do this through the Harvard Implicit Bias Test, which is linked in our presentation. Kind of tells you a little bit about your implicit biases.
Mm, This is,
And once you open it, it comes up to this screen.
yeah. And then you
And if
get
you,
to read through and say, I wish to proceed.
yep, and then it'll open you up to several different tests that you can take.
Mm.
So if you have about 10 minutes of your time and you're interested in that, I would definitely check that out.
Okay, so this was about 10 minutes you said to take, and you had the kids do it as well as you did it before
Yes.
the lesson itself. So great for the teacher to do, and then about 10 minutes, and then for the students as well.
Yep. And then lastly, like I said, those cross curricular opportunities, definitely take advantage of those throughout grade levels as well as throughout content. You can even do it in maybe a band class or a choir class. It's definitely doable, and it's something that students seem to really enjoy engaging in.
So this is the book again that this lesson came from. There's more in there as well. They're sorted out by those four content areas. And I know that about a year ago, NCTM put out a call. They were looking for teachers to contribute ideas at the middle and early childhood level. So I imagine that they're in the process of creating a book for those two other subject areas as well. In this book, there's a list of photos and pictures of the teachers that all contributed the lessons that are part of this book. So other resources as well. One, Dr. Christopher Childs was a keynote speaker at OCTM 2020, which was all online. So sitting in the same seat watching him present back last October. And this is his website over here, and that's him. And he was an amazing speaker. And one of the things that he shared was this idea, this lesson. It was a third grade mathematics multiplication lesson, he said, or division. And he said, here's the problem. Kendall has 42 crayons, and she wants to put the crayons into 6 mini storage bags, with the same number of crayons in each mini storage bag. So how many crayons would there be in each bag? Be prepared to explain, justify. And so he said, using any math tools to represent the problem, draw visuals. And he was asking, there were over 100 people in his keynote, give me some ideas in chat, what your representation looks like. And so people were explaining, well, I have, these dots, I have these numbers, I have these circles, I have whatever. He says, okay, so we've got those 42 crayons and 6 mini bags. So here's set test 2. You have 42 crayons, you have 18 of them are red and 24 are blue. And Kendall wants to put the crayons into 6 mini storage bags, the same number of red and blue crayons in each bag. So again, use mathematical tools to represent the problems, draw visuals. So then students, people in the presentation are responding and saying, well, I would, let's see, 18 crayons, 6 bags, that's 6 or 3 red crayons each. So if I have 3 red crayons each and then 4 blue crayons each, then each bag has 3 red, 4 blue, and there's 7 in each bag. So some ideas, and people are contributing some ideas, sharing different representations, some different thoughts about how to represent that. So now he's talking about test 3, where Kendall's playing a game called More Than. She has those 42 crayons, 18 red, 24 blue, and she needs to place the crayons meeting the following rule. Each group has to have a total of 7 crayons. All 42 crayons must be used. How can she arrange the crayons so that most groups have more red crayons than blue crayons? And how many groups have a great number of red crayons? So you got to think about, okay, so how do I do this so that most groups have more red crayons? There's 18 of them, and there's 6 bags. So more bags would mean, like, 3 is not enough, that'd be 4. And so I want to have of 7, I want to have like 4 out of the 7 be red. Is that possible? I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, and so this could be how it looks like. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I have more of the bags containing more red crayons. And then I take the blue ones and I can go 1, 2, 3, and move them in there. 1, 2, 3. And so now I have, this bag has 7. It has 7 crayons all together, but there's more red. And I could do the same thing here, here, here. And then I could fill out the rest however I wanted to in these last 2 bags. And so they met the rules of the game. And then that's when Dr. Charles said, and that is how you teach 3rd graders about gerrymandering.
Crazy.
And I was knocked off my chair here. And a lot of people were like, I know it was silence because, this was all on Zoom and stuff, but there was silence across the Zoom world because we were all like, that was kind of amazing. Thinking about how you redistrict things, how you think about things as well. So getting back to the idea of what's that you're teaching, you have these math content standards, the multiplication, the stats, the prob, or the geometry, but the when, and here in Ohio, better when, when is now as far as gerrymandering. We just lost a seat in the House of Representatives. So the districts are going to be redrawn. And to have that conversation is really kind of critical. And, this idea of having students know about things like Paralympics, about people participating in sports and wheelchairs, and about how districts are redrawn for social justice is really a good win, so many times, and good appropriate times to do that. So getting back to the objectives that Lauren and I had for you, hopefully, this time now you're able to maybe see the value of maybe being able to pick up some of these materials and looking through some of these possible lessons that are out there, thinking about, even though it takes some time to possibly incorporate it, are there benefits that outweigh that time that might be worth it? Spending some time to reflect on Lauren's experience. So, Lauren, is there anything you would change about your lesson after you've had a chance to do it now?
The lesson itself went fairly well. The only thing I would change, if I could, would be to have those students in person, since it's a lot easier to engage in discourse and to work in smaller groups in person. Plus, we wouldn't run into the occasional Wi-Fi outage that happened a lot, unfortunately. So, besides that, everything went great. I'm very glad that I had the chance to do it, and I look forward to doing another lesson.
Good. All right. So she had a good experience. So looking at that, thinking about what you might be able to take from that, what you might have to modify for your situation, and then the resources. That NCTM book is available on Amazon. Oh, all right. It's as of right now, right here, it's showing us $26, and it's the high school book. Keep your eyes open for. Um, um, there might be some stuff here from Dr. Childs, but keeping your eyes open for those elementary, middle school type resources that are coming up. So, and you know what? If you have things will, I don't know what's in here. If you need to contact us at all, Lauren, what is your email address if you would have people contact you at?
We can do lns42@uakron.edu.
Okay. Hopefully that will stay around for a while.
Yep.
And if people wanted to reach me, it would be lmp@uakron.edu. So make those bold and bigger. So if you have any thoughts or questions about implementing this, you want to be able to get a hold of us on that. That's how you would find us.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. Let me stop sharing this. And we'll just wish everybody good luck in doing this.